Welcome to Charis Ministries. We're glad you're able to join us for our teaching session today, which is called Second and Secure. It's designed for those who may be in a secondary or assistant role, who are wanting to know how best to serve the senior pastor. I believe it can also help those who are in the senior role understand how their assistant or their associate may be feeling, may be having to deal with issues in ministry. So whether you're in a senior role, in a position, organisation or church, or you're an assistant, I believe this can be helpful today. And I speak from some of my own experience. There are times where I've been in a senior role, and there's times where I've continued to serve in a more associate secondary role. And in my experience, it can be a very rewarding, it can be a very enriching experience, but it also can be very frustrating. And some of the things I want to say to you today may help you in terms of your character, may help you in terms of dealing with this, and maybe you can learn from some of my mistakes. The basis of the teaching was inspired by Pastor John Maxwell, and this is an issue I certainly had to deal with in my life. Being in a number two position is not an easy role to fill. One of the reasons for that is that people often in the world and in the church are aspiring to be number one. They want to be the boss. They want to be the one in charge. So it's not always that number two gets the attention or the honour it actually deserves. But truthfully, being in a number two position, being in a number two role, being an associate or an assistant may be the role that's best suited for us. We may not have the giftings, we may not have the leadership capacity, we may not have the right personality or temperament to be in that leadership role. So I think it's something that is valuable for us to learn wherever we find ourselves in ministry. We have to start by acknowledging it's not an easy position to fulfill. There's a number of reasons for that, and the first being our individual ego. Sometimes pride can just get in the way. It seems to make a statement about our gifts and our abilities if we're in a number two role. Also, it seems as if someone else's agenda has to come first. So whether we have ideas, whether we have things that we feel should come forward in a number two role, in an associate or assistant role, then that comes under the senior leader's role. And thirdly, because it seems as if our success is dependent on someone else's vision, someone else's ability, someone else's desire to push us forward. And that can be hard to take. Truthfully, we do have to filter out our ego, and we have to ask, do we have the necessary gifts to be in that senior role, or are gifts best suited to be in that secondary role? So let's look at some of the things that I think can help us serve well in that secondary role. Number one, I think we have to learn to serve in the present. One of the dangers is that in wanting to be number one is that we're grasping for things, that we're looking to the future, and maybe even we can carry this attitude, well, when I'm in a senior position, I'll do this. When I'm in charge, then I'll go ahead and do this. And if we're not careful, we can always be looking to the future, we can always be looking ahead, but actually part of what God's doing is in the present. If you think of the story in 1 Kings chapter 19 of Elijah and Elisha, Elisha is told to go and burn his plows. That may seem a strange thing in our culture if we're not from an agricultural background. And why would God ask him to do that? So why would God ask Elijah to do that? What's part of the story? Well, I think one of the things that's going on is that we have to put behind this past ministry. We have to serve in the present. We can't look to the future because that will evolve over time. God will open up the right opportunities at the right time. So we can't look to our past, whatever we've done, and we can't concentrate on the future. We have to serve in the present. 100% commitment, 100% of our heart actually involved in this. Listen to what Oswald Saunders said. God's training is for now, not later. His purpose is for this very minute, not for some time in the future. We have nothing to do with what will follow our obedience, and we are wrong to concern ourselves with it. What people call preparation, God sees as the goal itself. So the first thing I would say to you is learn to serve God in the present without worrying about the future. Let God take care of the future. No matter what you've done in the past, no matter what senior roles you may have had or are involved in other organisations, if you're in a second position at the moment, serve at it with all your heart. Serve in the present now. And I find there's a couple of issues that have to be settled in my heart. Really, it's not all about me. Life is bigger than me. Ministry is bigger than me. The church or the organisation is bigger than me. So we have to get that settled in our heart, that we're not the focus of everything. And in a second position, you really have to do that. The other thing you have to do and understand is that stewardship is more important than our station. In other words, what we do with what we have is more important than the position we currently hold. Are we using our gifts to the best of our ability? Are we serving well? Are we honouring those above us? This is something that's helpful to us, and it's an issue of character, but we need to settle it in our hearts. So firstly, we have to learn to serve in the present. Secondly, we have to learn to avoid a focus on position. Now, if you're anything like me, I'm quite a competitive person in sports and every arena of my life. So I have to be careful not to have a competitive spirit when it comes to ministry, when it comes to serving God. And that's often an issue of character. We can often see ministry as a career ladder. When I get a bigger church, when I get more opportunities, when I have a bigger platform. And that can be very destructive to us, especially if we feel that we're not getting the rewards we deserve. So how can we maintain a strong ministry? Well, it is learning to serve in the present, being committed to where you are. And if you're not focused on position, then you can put all of your effort, all of your heart, living your life as if you will be in that role, you'll be in that place all of your life. And that just allows us, it frees us up from the ego, and actually it allows us to make more informed decisions that are concerned with God's will. Because if we're taking our ego out of it, if we're taking our personality, then that can be helpful. It will allow us to be successful because we'll be in the right place with God. It will allow us to have confidence because we know we're doing the right things before Him. A couple of other things that it will help us do is, no one else will own us. There'll be no politics that can influence unduly. We will be owned by God. That will give us confidence and boldness in serving Him. And it will give us the boldness or the confidence to say no to some opportunities, because we know our focus is where God has placed us right there and then, and we don't have to worry about other opportunities. That will allow us to say no. Think of Jesus. There are opportunities Jesus said no to. There were opportunities He said yes to. But His desire was to serve God in whatever way He could. So far we've just looked briefly at the idea of learning to serve in the present. Second thing is learn to avoid a focus on position. And the third thing is learn to focus on character. One of the things about serving in the secondary position is that you will learn things of honesty, faithfulness, perseverance, endurance. They're a great place and a great opportunity to develop some of those characteristics. Often a problem arises in ministry when people get too much adoration, too much praise too early in their ministry, and really the character can't handle it. It can cause problems. But when we serve others, we develop our capacity in maturity. We mature that little bit more when we learn to serve someone else. Because it's not then so much about what are my rights, but what's the right thing to do in this situation. Fourth principle of serving in a secondary role is that we show loyalty to our leader. If you have been in a same position in any role or capacity, then you will know, no matter how relational you are, no matter how effective you are in dealing with people, there is a loneliness that comes with a senior position. There is a responsibility that comes with that can isolate you from the very people you're trying to serve. So serving as a second, serving as a number two, God's looking for you to show a tremendous deal of loyalty. Doesn't mean to say you'll agree with everything that's being said or done, but there is a loyalty to that friendship, to that relationship, to that service. If you're looking for a Bible example of that, think of the idea of David and Jonathan. God seemed to knit their hearts together, even though it was a difficult situation with Saul. It was born out of a need. David certainly needed a friend, and so did Jonathan. Jonathan needed someone he could respect, and he didn't find that in his father Saul, but he did find it in David. But truthfully, friendships with the senior leader are usually only formed when the second person takes the initiative. It also will involve that sense of love, but not in an emotional way. We'll come on to that a little bit later. But friendships are proven when loyalty is given. So let's take a moment to review, and the next screen will show you the 4 key principles that will help us serve in a secondary role. So thank you for joining us for part 1 of this teaching on secure and second. Have a look at our next video where we look at some questions that we can ask of ourselves serving in a secondary role, and also some questions that are useful to ask of the senior leader as we seek to serve their vision and ministry. All our contact details will be coming on screen in a moment. Please feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you.